Hello, world, welcome. I am your host, Mr. Stagg. They weren't bankers, and they weren't billionaires. They were two Irish brothers with a few lines of code and a vision to simplify online payments. Stripe has quietly become the backbone of the internet economy, powering businesses from Amazon to Google. But how did it all start, and how did it become one of the most valuable private companies in the world, without most people even knowing what it is? This is the origin story of Stripe, the fintech giant quietly reshaping global commerce. Patrick Collison was born on September 9, 1988, in Limerick, Ireland. His younger brother John Collison was born on August 6, 1990. They grew up in the rural village of Dromineer in County Tipperary. Their parents ran a small hotel, and from a young age the brothers were drawn to computers, math and building things. The Collison brothers weren't just bright kids. They came from a family that treated curiosity as a core value. Their father, Dennis Collison, was an electrical engineer, and their mother, Lily, was a microbiologist turned entrepreneur. Lily later authored a book and worked in organizational leadership. It was a household that blended science, business, and self-initiative. Raised in rural Dromineer, County Tipperary, population less than 100, the Collison brothers didn't have elite prep schools or tech incubators. What they did have was access to the internet, an obsessive drive to learn, and a father who introduced them to computing early. They didn't just consume information, they built with it. Patrick, for example, won the 2005 Young Scientist of the Year award in Ireland for creating a programming language when he was just 16. Their hometown may have lacked resources, but their minds were a universe of innovation. That's what ultimately led them from the Irish countryside to the heart of Silicon Valley. Patrick taught himself computer programming at age 10. By 16, he had already won the 41st Young Scientist and Technology exhibition in Ireland. John, just as precocious, built websites and coded software in his early teens. They were voracious learners, reading constantly, exploring code and experimenting online. After high school, Patrick went to MIT and John to Harvard, but both dropped out to pursue their startup ambitions full-time. Before Stripe, there was Shopper, an e-commerce optimization tool created by the Collison brothers in 2007. The name means shopping in Irish. It wasn't a smash hit, but it caught the eye of Silicon Valley's Y Combinator. The brothers merged Shopper with a Canadian startup, forming a new company, Automatic. Automatic focused on helping eBay sellers manage listings and analytics. Patrick became CEO at just 19. Within a year, they sold Automatic for $5 million to Live Current Media, giving them their first real Silicon Valley win. But rather than resting, the brothers quietly started brainstorming a much bigger problem: online payments. Automatic taught them something crucial. Building tools for businesses was a scalable strategy. The lessons in customer pain points, product market fit, and back-end infrastructure were the seeds that grew into Stripe. In 2010, frustrated by how difficult it was to accept payments online, they decided to fix it. Setting up a payment system back then involved dealing with clunky APIs, banks, merchant accounts, and weeks of red tape. The brothers thought, why isn't there a simple API for payments? And with that, Stripe was born. Stripe launched as a developer-friendly payments platform. Their goal was to make online payments as easy as embedding a few lines of code. They started with a simple beta product called /dev/payments, which caught the attention of Silicon Valley insiders. In 2010, they were accepted into Y Combinator. The accelerator's co-founder, Paul Graham, was so impressed he personally used Stripe for Y Combinator's donations page. That credibility helped Stripe raise its first seed round. Investors like Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, and Sequoia Capital poured in money. The brothers were just 19 and 21. Stripe quickly became the go-to payments solution for startups, e-commerce shops, and eventually giants like Lyft, Shopify, and Amazon. Stripe didn't just want to power payments in the US, they wanted to become the financial infrastructure for the entire internet. Their ambition was global, aiming to connect businesses and consumers everywhere. That meant expanding internationally, partnering with local banks, and complying with financial regulations in dozens of countries. By 2016, Stripe was live in over 25 countries. Its suite of products had expanded to include fraud detection, radar, billing services, issuance of virtual and physical cards, and enterprise-level APIs. It became the invisible engine behind subscription services, SaaS products, and online marketplaces around the world. In 2021, Stripe entered the Middle East and expanded heavily into Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia, becoming a truly global fintech player. One of the boldest moves Stripe made early on was global expansion, but not in the traditional sense. They weren't just launching in new countries for show. They were building localized infrastructure, regulatory frameworks, and currency compliance tools in every market they entered. By 2020, Stripe was available in over 40 countries, but supporting businesses in more than 135 plus countries. They even launched Stripe Terminal, hardware for in-person payments, showing they weren't just an online payments provider, but a holistic financial infrastructure company. Then came Stripe Climate, allowing companies to direct a portion of their revenue to carbon removal projects integrated directly into the Stripe dashboard. This wasn't just a company chasing dollars, it was a company chasing impact, their vision to be the economic infrastructure of the internet, not just a button for payments. But Stripe wasn't just a clean UI, it was a technical marvel under the hood. The Collison brothers obsessively built infrastructure that could handle massive volumes of transactions with near zero downtime. They implemented Stripe Radar for fraud prevention using machine learning long before it became industry standard. They also built their own internal bank routing infrastructure, creating redundancy across multiple acquiring banks. This meant that even if one bank failed to process a transaction, Stripe would route it to another in milliseconds. This was the kind of back-end sophistication that legacy players like PayPal couldn't match at the time. Stripe's strength was its commitment to being a developer-first company and a hardcore fintech infrastructure provider behind the scenes. Stripe's business model is simple but powerful. It charges a small fee per transaction, typically 2.9% plus 30 cents. But when you process billions in payments daily, that adds up. It also offers premium services like Atlas for starting global companies, Climate for carbon removal, and Terminal for in-person payments. In 2022, Stripe processed over $817 billion in total payment volume. Despite being private, its financials are staggering. The company reported over $14 billion in revenue and operates with a lean workforce of just under 8,000 employees. Its valuation peaked at $95 billion in 2021, though it later adjusted to $50 billion as markets tightened. Despite being one of the most valuable private companies in the world, once valued at $95 billion, Stripe has resisted going public. Why? Patrick and John Collison have said they're focused on long-term strategy over short-term stock spikes. But insiders believe they're also wary of public markets scrutiny and the limitations it could place on innovation. Still, they've been preparing. In 2023, Stripe raised over $6.5 billion in a funding round that allowed early employees to cash out, a rare move that mimics IPO liquidity without going public. The round dropped their valuation to $50 billion, but it also strengthened their balance sheet during a turbulent economic climate. An IPO is inevitable, but for Stripe, it'll be on their terms. Still, Stripe remains one of the most valuable private companies on Earth. Patrick and John Collison are famously low-key. Despite their wealth and influence, they avoid the spotlight. Patrick lives in San Francisco and is known for his intellectual curiosity. He reads dozens of books a year and writes essays on science and history. John, too, is deeply involved in the company's operations and also lives a quiet life compared to many Silicon Valley founders. Both still hold major equity in Stripe and continue to serve as CEO, Patrick, and President, John. As of 2025, Patrick Collison is worth an estimated $10.1 billion, while John Collison is worth around $10.1 billion, making them two of the youngest self-made billionaires in the world. But their lifestyle is far from flashy. They've donated millions to science, education, and climate causes and have expressed admiration for institutions like the Long Now Foundation. Their legacy isn't just Stripe. It's how they've redefined what tech entrepreneurship can look like when paired with thoughtfulness and long-term vision. Stripe has largely avoided scandal, but it hasn't been without challenges. Its rapid international growth meant navigating compliance with dozens of financial regulators. In 2022, it faced criticism for cutting about 14% of its workforce amid economic uncertainty. Some also argue Stripe has too much power over online payments, especially as it expands into banking infrastructure. Still, it has remained more transparent and mission-driven than many of its peers. And in a world where trust is critical, Stripe's reputation has remained remarkably clean. Stripe is betting big on the future of the internet economy. It wants to build the financial rails for everything from creator monetization to cryptocurrency payouts. It's working with OpenAI to enable ChatGPT payments. It's building tax compliance systems. And it's even helping launch startups in developing countries. An IPO could come in 2025 or later, but for now, Stripe is focused on building the invisible infrastructure of tomorrow's economy. Whether it's a $5 transaction or a $500 million funding round, Stripe is there, quietly taking its cut. From rural Ireland to Silicon Valley dominance, the story of Stripe is one of brilliance, timing, and relentless focus. If you enjoyed this deep dive, like, comment, and subscribe to Stag Research, your go-to channel for business deep dives and founder legacies. Got a hot take on Stripe's future? Drop it in the comments. Mr. Stag, logging off.